live. We'll have introed and done all the fun things. But what we were just talking about off air is that you're in the middle of buying your first house.
Yeah, I am. I'm excited. I'm
But
excited.
one big thing we talk about all the time are expanders. And I was like talking to Jessica off air too, because one of my big wounds is I have to do everything on my own. I have to build it from
Ooh.
scratch, etc. And the fact that you just shared that your girlfriend owns all of these like, do you think that's played a big part of you walking through this process?
Um, what's played a big part is feeling a lot of emotional peace and feeling
Mm.
free, clear, and peace inside in the relationship. That's what's played a big part actually, is being more expansive internally and feeling very natural moving into buying, it's a big property and a big investment. And as opposed to before, I always wanted flexibility, and I wanted convenience and flexibility in my life. And I wanted to have more cash to be able to invest in my business and other things, not in a place where I lived. So I wanted to be able to move quickly if I needed to. I wanted to be able to travel, do these things. And now I really feel like investing in my own home environment will actually create more abundance and expansiveness in every other area of my life. So that's why I'm doing the investment.
I totally agree. I think it's so energetic. I think I love everything you shared, and I love the
Yeah.
awareness that you were like before, not commitment, but like you needed that fluidity in case
Yes.
you had to, you know what I'm like, if there's a rock bottom, because you've gone through a humongous rock bottom that we'll talk about in
Hmm.
your life.
Yeah.
If I'm not crazy, you're a Pisces.
I am Pisces, March 16th.
Are you hippie enough to know your moon and rising?
My girlfriend is, and she's told me probably a dozen times, but
Yeah.
I think I'm Virgo rising.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, good. Good,
I'm
good,
not
good.
sure.
Well, this is so, I mean, just like huge congrats, because I'm sure you're probably learning from her that it's also the best leverage to build more wealth, right? Like once this market's a little chill, the
Yeah.
equity and using that, but I just love the energetics behind your decision is so
Yeah,
exciting.
I think it is. I studied real estate for a long time. I've got a lot of wealthy real estate friends who have billions in assets. And some of them have told me never, I mean, this is one theory. It's like never own where you live,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? But rent what
Ramit
you own, right?
Ramit's a big one on this.
Yeah, Ramit and a lot of other people who, and so, but I felt like, okay, because in my opinion, I mean, if I'm doing the math and the numbers, actually buying a home in LA specifically for the amount that I'm getting it for is not a good investment because
Hmm.
there's now a mansion tax that's coming out that is a 5% tax when you sell it off the top. There's all the
Damn.
fees, there's everything else. There's a property tax every year and all the maintenance. Like, I'll be lucky in 5 to 7 years, actually, if it goes up a couple $1 million if I
Totally.
break even. I'll be
Totally.
lucky to break even. So
Yeah.
it's actually not like the best investment, in my opinion, if you're living in it. If you're owning it and renting and that's a better move. But
Yeah.
building the emotional investment, building the spatial investment, the environment investment, and the investment of giving back to me, of
Hmm.
giving to me and my space, my time, and my sanctuary, I believe will create abundance financially, spiritually, relationally. It'll create community, which will create unlock other magic in my life. Because I've never really had people over because I've lived in smaller, kind of condos or apartments. And so this is going to create spaces of connection, abundance, and prosperity. And that's what excites me because it's going to allow for financial freedom to unlock to a whole nother level
Oh
where I'm
yeah.
at.
I yes, 100%. On the first note too, I'm the crazy person who every property is like a farm and having lease backs and it has three
Yeah, yeah,
businesses on
yeah,
it
yeah. And a
because
guest house
I
with an extra address that you can rent to your business and everything else.
got it all. I do it all because in like I love that you've recognized for yourself, and I hope that people are really hearing that because it's so true. I mean, I believe that there are two ways that could go. Like you have the person who hasn't processed their inner stuff yet, and they're like, I'm gonna buy and I'm gonna do it like Lewis so that I unlock the next level. And then you never know what happens with them. Or you have the people who are actually doing the work, and they're getting into the depths of that and realizing, oh no, this is the piece that's gonna like command my worth and my feeling.
Yeah. And I already feel peaceful and abundant
Yeah.
and all those things. I just think it's going to expand it even more. To speak about what you talk about is just expanding it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a whole like, I don't know, I can't remember the analogy. It's like the goldfish in the bowl analogy. It's like where the fish can only grow to the size of the environment that it's living in, the size of the bowl. And once you put it in a bigger bowl, it actually starts to grow the goldfish. And I think it's kind of like in life when we put ourselves in different environments with more space, we can think beyond the capacity we're currently in. And so I feel like it's just going to be a great way to deepen a foundation for abundance that I already feel like I have. And I've been investing in real estate for over 7 years. I'm an
Hmm.
investor in multiple apartment complexes, mobile park homes. Like I've been investing in them, but I never
Amazing.
bought my own property because I also know my strength. I was like, I don't want to have extra management or thinking space or even managing a manager who's thinking about it. I was like, I don't want any of that. I want to invest, let someone else take care of all of it, and just get a check every month without having to touch a thing. So
Hmm.
I know my strengths because it's not like I want to get in there and like be creative about it because I just felt like I'd rather use that mental energy on doing what I do best and expanding abundance in my business in another way. So I know myself. My girlfriend, she's like, she wants to become a realtor and like dive into it and study it all and do it. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, you can do that. That's not what I
Yeah.
want to do. So
Yeah, I love that. I think you just hit so many important points that are so I glean a lot from that, and I'm on her side, like where
sure,
design and
sure.
everything's my face. So I love that. I love
She loves
people
it.
getting
Yes.
clear.
But the idea
One,
of even checking my, I see her on Airbnb, even if it's like once a month, because she's got someone managing all her messages and
yeah,
everything, like everyone does. But I'm like, even those 10 minutes is like time space away from me creating more abundance from something else. So I know my strength. That's her strength.
yeah.
Great. Do your thing and I'll do my thing. Yeah.
Amen. Okay, one thing I want to geek out on because and in a really like beautiful and positive way because it's become really meaningful in my life, especially through birth of my first baby. You know
Congratulations.
Grace. I think we mutually love Grace is
Yeah.
phenomenal. And you guys share the commonality that you were raised in Christian Science. And for the
Yep.
person listening who's going like, oh, Christian Science, and they're confusing it with Scientology, et cetera, et cetera. Grace actually, my grandparents, like, they practiced a little bit in the 70s. And then it wasn't until a year in Grace working with me, like way back when she was an intern, and we were all at my retreat house, and she was like, I'm a Christian Scientist. And I was like, tell me about that. I love theology. I love learning about
Wow.
stuff. I want to hear about this. And when she explained it, I was like, this sounds awesome. And to
Right.
me, the way that I really deduce it, I personally think that Mary Baker Eddy was a genius, like a woman doing that at that time against the, I mean, it's brilliant. To me, like if I were to deduce it into something, to me it's Christ consciousness.
Hmm.
I think it's phenomenal. I love the message, and I really practiced it through my pregnancy and birth and had like an extremely harmonious experience. I
Wow.
want to talk about your experience because whenever I meet Christian Scientists, I'm like, tell me, like, how did this play into your life,
Yeah.
into your career as an athlete, just to everything.
It was a game changer in a lot of ways. I think as a kid, it was confusing because I felt pain and I felt I'm in a material body. And I'm like, what do you mean this isn't real? Like this matter feels like matter. And the whole practice of the religion is that we are spiritual beings, right? We're spiritual beings in a material world, but we are an idea, we're thoughts. And it's not the body that causes cancer or causes disease, it's thought. It's thought that causes that, a broken thought. And when we can heal our thinking, the body follows with healing, with flow, with grace, with all these different things, with harmony and alignment. But if our thinking is out of alignment, the body typically follows at some point, or somewhere in the physical 3D world follows. I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, And
He's the science of Christian Science.
every time I talk to him, and every time I interview him, I've interviewed
Yeah.
him, I don't know, 5 times, and
Yes, I've
you know,
heard them.
I just went to his retreat, 7-day retreat, which was amazing. I'm like, dude, everything you say is Christian Science. Like
Yeah.
like almost word for word, you sound like a Christian Scientist because he's
Yeah.
talking about thinking, sending a thought is an electrical charge that you're putting into the world, and a feeling is a magnetic charge drawing the thought back. And I'm like, okay, that's Christian Science. Well,
Hmm.
you're thinking something. If you're thinking ill, negative, guilty, unforgiving thoughts, resentment, anger thoughts, you're going to draw that back into your body. If you're thinking healing thoughts, and you're what we talk about knowing the truth
Yeah.
of human beings, which are spiritual ideas. So if you're thinking, I am an idea, I'm a whole healthy idea, that
Yeah.
means the rest of my thoughts must be in alignment with that. But if they're out of alignment with that thought, then you're fracturing your physical experience. You're fracturing the body and the environment around you to attract and magnetize and draw in animal magnetism,
Hmm.
animal thoughts, animal feelings. And so that's why it was confusing, because I had, you're growing up a teenage boy, you got hormones, you got feeling, you got sexual thoughts, you got all these thoughts. And what Mary Baker Eddy taught was to stand portal at the door of your mind, is to be a guard, to be a witness, and to allow the right thoughts to come in that are in harmony with your highest self, high-minded self.
Which is just
Not
like Taoism.
Yeah,
It's the same thing since
not
the beginning of time.
not allowing harmful thoughts to hurt you. And and obviously you want to have discernment. We're also moving in a three-dimensional world, but what Joe Dispenza talks about, just being in 5D more frequently, getting into the frequency of love, the thought of love, the
Hmm.
thought of healing, the thought of harmony. And so when we get to the frequency, he talks about becoming no one, no thing, no where, no time, no space. When you get into the 5-dimensional frequency of love, you are connected or closer to source. And when you're closer to source, God, love, the frequency of healing, then the body follows when you can do it more frequently. And so that's kind of my experience growing up in Christian Science. I had many physical healings that I was not supposed to heal,
Hmm.
um, from the practice. I broke 3 ribs in a game, and I healed it within 2 weeks. The year before, I broke the same 3 ribs, and it took me like months to recover. But I did something different.
Wow.
I did something different with my thought the second time around that I didn't
What
do the
was
first.
that?
I knew the truth, and I
Yeah.
remembered the truth. And the first time it happened, I remembered the fear, and I
Mm.
remembered, oh, okay, how long is this going to take? Oh man, I'm out for the whole season. Oh man, I got to wait 3 months. And I remembered the fear of the reality of a physical world as opposed to the truth of a spiritual world.
Hmm.
And the second time around, it happened. And quickly I went into, oh, shoot, my career is over. Like my season's over again. This is the second game of the year. And I broke the same 3 ribs, got speared by a helmet. And matter to matter, it takes longer in space time reality to accomplish a goal if you're living in space time reality, physical world. But I went into the spiritual, metaphysical world, and I remembered the truth, and I believed in the truth, and I owned and embodied the truth. The whole symbol of Christian Science is about healing. It's heal the sick. That is on the actual crest of Christian Science. It's a cross and a crown. It's about healing and having healing thoughts, that we are in harmony with the spiritual world. And when we can get back to that place and we can live in healing harmony thoughts consistently, the frequency that we are magnetizing and drawing into us is abundance, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of joy, the feeling of love. And then we can discern and make decisions in the 3D world of what actions to take and what things to say yes and no to, that are in harmony with that thinking and that belief system. So I did that. I broke my wrist, and it was broken for about a year, and I just kept like living in pain. And then I remember I got a X-ray, and the doctor said, "What have you been doing for this last year? Like you broke this a year ago, and it's still broken." And I just kept playing on it and playing sports on it, and kind of like grinding it and cracking it. And so when I had for a year, there was a crack in the wrist, in the bone. I get an X-ray, and the guy's like, "We got to do surgery. Like this is going to go too long. You're going to have arthritis for the rest of your life if you don't do this now. You're going to have this problem, all this stuff." I was 17, and I said, my mom, who wasn't a Christian Scientist raised, but became one because she married my father, who was a
Mm.
devout Christian Scientist, kind of lived in both worlds. She lived in the
Mhm.
world of like practicality and and make sure you're safe and healthy and like let's just do the surgery, but also understood the teachings of Christian Science. And she said, "I think we should do the surgery." I said, "Mom,
Oh, I have the chills. Wow, that's so crazy.
I said, I said, Mom, give me 2 weeks. I'm going to go away for 2 weeks." I had this. I was going to a summer camp to be a camp counselor for the next 2 weeks, and it was actually at a Christian Science summer
Yeah,
camp.
yeah, yeah. They sound amazing, those
And
camps.
and,
Yeah.
um, and I went there, and I said, "Give me 2 weeks, Mom." She was like, "You're getting the surgery. Like, we need to heal this thing. If you let this go on forever, you're not going to be able to use your hand." She was living in fear. I said, "Give me 2 weeks. When I come back, we'll do the X-ray again. I'll come to the same surgeon. We'll take another X-ray. If it's not healed, I'll do the surgery." She said, "Cool. Okay. 2 weeks. Fine. Come back. We'll do this." So I'm in the environment of healing thoughts for 2 weeks, and I focus my energy is almost every moment I can on I am a spiritual being. I'm a
Mm.
healed whole human. My thinking was thinking spiritually healthy, whole, harmony, strong, all these thinking thoughts. And I was being powerful, strong, healing energy for others around me. So I wasn't acting like, "Oh, I'm just here like shy, like in this negative state." I was like, I'm being it for others as well, thinking it and being it for others. I come back and I do the X-ray again. I have these X-rays still. I gotta bring them out at some point because I don't think I've actually told this story. And and he comes to me. We have to do the X-ray twice because he said, "Huh, something doesn't look right." And I already said, I already knew to myself, I'm healed.
Yeah, yeah.
I already knew. And he comes to me again. He goes, "Okay, I don't see the crack anymore." And he's like, "I don't know what happened. Like, what'd you do? How's it? I still feel like we should do something, but it's not there anymore." And I go, "I healed myself." And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy. But he's like, "Okay, if you don't feel pain anymore, like, okay, I still think we should do this," because he was confused. But I was like, "No, I'm good, Mom. Look, here's the evidence." And so I didn't. I ended up breaking it again, like 5 years later, and needing to do a surgery because I just completely shattered it. But that first time was a massive healing for me. And yeah, I just had so many cool moments like that. But
Isn't that
it's only
incredible?
if I'm in that state of being
Yeah.
consistently, because I could go into other places where I get sick or hurt, and my fear is taking over, and it takes longer to heal. It takes as long as normally it would take for a human to heal.
It's so and you because there's like angles I want to go here. I love this. It's to me, I love this topic. And it's something that has always been like somebody who suffered from endocrine issues and hormonal, et cetera, et cetera. It's been a massive part of my journey of healing. Like I've had total healings I've shared with um, the community. It's really, in fact, one day you'll have to meet Grace's mom, Mel. We all know Mel, and she is the most devout Christian Scientist on the planet. And
Wow.
this woman in her 60s, she never like birthdays, she doesn't recognize, obviously. She
My
is
dad never celebrated birthdays when I was growing up.
right. That's all. No, nothing. And I love that. I just love so many concepts around this. And she is the most. I don't even know how one human can have so much energy and get so much done. She is so inspiring. And so anytime I'm sort of like grumbling with things, I really think to her and I'm like, that's what that looks like when you've been in that state of consciousness for that long. Like she is so, it's a testament. It's incredible. So I love that. Well, let's pivot into your major rock bottom then, which was ultimately your path to greatness, essentially, right? Let's talk
Yeah.
about that for the listeners who aren't familiar, haven't heard that story, or just don't know you in general, because I think it's a really powerful pivot and a big thing we
Yeah.
talk about are rock bottoms.
I mean, most of my life, I wanted to be successful, right? I grew up very insecure, very unsure of myself, um, very afraid and uncertain about why I'm here, what's the point of my life. Um, and I didn't really have a lot of friends. And I didn't feel good about myself because I was always in the bottom of my class in school. They would rank us on grade cards, so I was always in the bottom four. And I didn't have confidence even just getting in front of my classmates and speaking aloud or reading from a book because I had a very poor reading level. So I just lived in a lot of insecurity and fear most of my childhood. I was also sexually abused when I was 5, and that made me live in a lot of fear. I was sexually abused by a man that I didn't know. And for 25 years, I held on to the shame, and no one knew this about me until 10 years ago. I started to kind of talk about it and open up and heal. And that caused a lot of anger inside of me to want to prove people wrong, to want to protect myself, to want to never be taken advantage of or abused again. It created this unconscious script of fear and needing to protect myself. When I was 8, my brother went to prison for 4.5 years. So I grew up in a small town in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and small town news travels fast. So my world was like a 2 block neighborhood. It was just like I'd walk around or go on my bike, and it was like that was my whole world. And all the moms wouldn't let their neighborhood kids hang out with me for those 4 years because my brother was in prison. They thought I was a bad kid, all these different things. So I just didn't have friends really growing up. It wasn't until I was about 12 when I met like my first friend, and that's not an exaggeration. Um, I had classmates, but I didn't have friends. And so I remember just feeling very unsure of myself. But I had big goals and dreams to be successful, to try to prove myself to others so that I would fit in and be accepted and feel a sense of belonging. Because I didn't belong to myself, I didn't belong to anyone else, is what I felt like. And I also, as I became like a teenager, I started to get pretty good at sports because I put all my anger and aggression into athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, okay, I didn't have skill or talent in academics at all, but I started to see I had some skill and talent there. So I just put everything into that, um, and became pretty successful as an athlete, right? I became pretty successful in sports, college, professional football, played with the USA handball team for 8 years. And then I went on to build a business. Um, I was struggling on my sister's couch at one point, and I went on to learn through coaches and mentors and just taking a lot of action on my fears how to start a business when I didn't think that would ever happen. And when I hit 30, I probably had 2 rock bottoms. One was like losing my dream of playing football and being on my sister's couch for a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out what I was going to do in 2008 when the recession happened and all this was happening. And my father got into a car accident that left him in a coma for many months,
Oh.
and right around the same time. So that was kind of like rock bottom 1. But rock bottom 2 was probably even worse. And it's because I had success, I had money, I had health, I had accolades, I had all these things, but I was still miserable and suffering inside. And I think that's a greater rock bottom than actually having nothing
Mm-hmm.
and kind of in transition. For me, it's like winning, but winning at the wrong things and still feeling like a loser was worse for me than being on my sister's couch because I already had nothing. So it's kind of like, all right, I have nothing, whatever. It was hard, but it's worse to have quote unquote everything externally and feel nothing inside in my mind. So that was about 10 years ago. And I moved to Los Angeles for a girl. The day I moved, she broke up with me.
Oh.
I was going through kind of an emotional up and down relationship with my business partner at the time, where we weren't in alignment on our vision and our values moving forward. And I lacked the emotional tools on how to communicate, and so did he. So it was just kind of like frustration with each other. And I was taking all of this frustration and anger out from these kind of two relationship breakups that were happening in life. And I was reactive, and I felt like everyone was against me. It was kind of like I was a 5-year-old being sexually
Mhm.
abused in every
Mhm.
area of life. If someone would cut me off in a car, it was like I had to get in front of them and scream at them or flip them off
Mhm.
because I felt like they were abusing me. If, my business partner, I felt like he was doing something unethical, it was like he was abusing me. The girlfriend, when she broke up with me, when I moved to LA to be in a relationship with her because she requested it, I was like, this is the greatest abuse, right? So all
Mhm.
these things were just stories confirming that I was this like abused person. And I ended up, and all these things were happening, that I ended up getting into a fight on a basketball court here in Los Angeles on a pickup basketball game. And that was kind of like the last thing for me, because it made me realize like there's something inside of me that's getting triggered easily, even when I'm not being attacked. And I've got to take a look inside. And I was with a buddy of mine at the time, who was a good friend of mine. He was like, "Hey, I don't want to really hang out with you anymore if you're going to act this way."
Mm.
And it was a big wake up call for me. And I go,
Mhm.
"Okay, the common denominator, all these things, is not that everyone doesn't understand me, which is what I was saying. Like people just don't get me, they don't understand me. Is that I'm at the center of all these breakdowns. And so let me take a look in the mirror and see what I can do, because I had accomplished so much at that time that I thought like nothing was wrong with me, and I had the answers, and my ego was leading the way. But I realized, man, but emotionally I was bankrupt, and I didn't know why. And that's when I started the journey of healing 10 years ago. And I've done numerous different experiences and exercise and therapeutic processes to allow me to unpack and mend the wounds to create new meaning so that I could have a different vision for my life. And
Mhm.
and that's kind of been the journey I've been on in the last 10 years now.
The big question, and thank you for sharing all of that, which I know
Yeah.
you've shared publicly, but that's a lot. That's a lot, you know. I'm really grateful. The big question I have is during that process and the different modalities you've used to heal, like when you really get to the root of your authentic self, like who you are and who you weren't obviously at all didn't have the tools to touch in with when you were younger and going through all those challenges, like who is that?
Who am I on the other side?
No, just like you're like when you really get into your true authenticity because you weren't able to be in touch with it as a kid, right? Like you had all of these confirming experiences that are like, I have to be a shell of a person to be
Yeah.
loved. I have no
Uh-huh.
idea what that's going to be. But now that you've been through like these modalities and healing and actually like touching in with that inner child and that
Yeah.
version of you, like who are you? I love this. Like to me, this is a question I could talk about forever, but like
Sure.
I've had these experiences to really find out, like, oh no, this is me. Like, this is my authentic self. Who is that for
Yeah.
you?
Who am I?
Who are you, Lewis? Who are you?
I'm a loving, passionate, wise man.
You're a Pisces,
I,
which is what Pisces are. But
I
yeah,
am a loving, passionate, wise, whole man.
I love
And
it.
for years, for most of my life, I thought I was never enough, and I
Mhm.
was broken, and I thought, um, all these different things, that I was never enough. And there's really three main fears that cause us to doubt ourselves. I'm a big believer that self doubt is the biggest killer of all of our dreams, our abundance, fulfillment, love, joy, all these things when we doubt. Um, and those three fears are the fear of failure, fear of success, and the fear of judgment. I didn't fear failure or success, which is a lot of people's main fear, one of those two.
Mhm.
And I can break down why if you want at some point. But I didn't fear those because as an athlete, I was trained that failure is just part of the process. It's feedback, it's information to help you win. And so
Mhm.
you needed to fail in order to succeed. And success is what I wanted because I thought if I was successful, then I would belong, I would fit in, I would matter, I would get accepted. And since I didn't accept myself fully and didn't own who I was fully, all the success I accomplished for 20 plus years was never enough to fill what I wasn't able to fill myself without it. And so the main fear for me was the fear of judgment, other people's opinions, because again, I was alone until I was about 12, didn't really have friends, and felt made fun of and picked on because of all the different challenges I was going through. And I felt like I just wanted to belong. I wanted to fit in, but I never belonged to me. I never accepted me. And therefore, I would give in and abandon myself, my values, my personality, my dreams to please others around me. And I don't know if anyone listening or watching has ever been a people pleaser in the past or a recovering people pleaser.
Or
It is,
currently.
or currently, it is exhausting. It is a
Mm-hmm.
losing game because you're always battling against who you actually are. You're never going to be able to buy peace, buy love by abandoning yourself and giving in to please one other human. And I think that's the game I played for 30 years until I hit 30, because I just wanted people to accept and like me. But if I don't accept and like me, then it doesn't really matter how many other people like me, because they're liking me for a version that is not 100% authentic to my highest self when I'm abandoning who I am. So I had to
Absolutely.
learn that the hard way. And at the center of all three of these fears, failure, success, judgment, is I'm not enough. I am not enough. And I had to go back and I did a process. I don't know if you've ever done this, Lacey, but in the last couple of years, I've done a process. Right now, for about 6 months, I had a photo of my 5-year-old self on my phone. Right now, I've got a 17-year-old self
Yeah.
um, on my phone right now. And I was doing a lot of the healing from the 5 to kind of 8 year range.
Give me one sec, Liz. I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna let my housekeeper know really quickly. She's
You're good.
blowing. I'm so apologetic.
No worries.
Angelica, I'm so sorry. If you don't mind, thank you so much. I apologize.